In this edition of the Severe Series by One Nation Weather, I'm going to be talking about damaging wind events and derechos, those types of severe weather in this video. This is episode number 3 of the Severe Series, so let's go ahead and hop right on in. Thanks for joining me. Okay, so let's review what we have already discussed in the series. We have already gone over the following: watches and warnings. I've told you about severe thunderstorm watches and warnings as well as tornado watches and warnings. I also have gone over safety during severe storms, but we're going to dive deeper into safety during damaging wind events in this video, but go ahead and check out those others before you watch this one. They're all under the playlist Severe Series. Now, types of damaging wind events. Severe weather is not limited to rotating supercells that result in hail and tornadoes. Winds can come from everyday thunderstorms in the forms below, and all three of these are connected, and downbursts really include derecho and straight line winds. So the downburst, straight line wind, and derecho, those are all connected, with downbursts being at the top of the scale. Now, downbursts are very common, and they come from most thunderstorms that produce wind damage. They can last for typically short periods of time, but they can make those gnarly winds of 50 to 100 miles per hour. Most cases, these are going to be those 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts that you get out of some of the severe thunderstorm warnings that come over your area, if you get them. They form when storm downdrafts blast rain and wind to the surface. Sometimes they can be dry micro or downbursts, but in general, they are just going to produce that heavy rain, and when the rain hits the ground, it moves out in all four directions, producing the wind, or in some cases, it comes out more in a gust front at the leading edge of a storm, maybe a shelf cloud that produces those gusty winds. We'll talk about that more with derechos. Now, microbursts and their risks. Microbursts are even smaller scale than downbursts, and they form when extreme amounts of wind and rain quickly drop out of a cloud. Again, this is if you're talking about the wet microburst type, over a small area of only a couple miles in diameter. They can also produce wind damage equal to the EF0 to EF1 tornadoes, so certainly something where you don't want to be in that lowest, most interior room. So here's a look at a microburst. You can clearly see that big, it almost looks like an egg falling out of the cloud, right? And you can see how once that hits the ground, it will blast out in all directions. You can see that the strong downdraft coming out of the cloud in that picture from the National Weather Service, with the high wind areas being on either side of the storm. This is especially, how it works when there's stationary storms and there's no gust front coming out in a specific direction. Now let's discuss derechos. Derechos are going to be larger scale, sometimes even more dangerous wind damage events in comparison to downbursts. According to the Weather Service, derechos were the main reason for the term straight line winds being used. So the derecho definition exactly. Derechos are long-lasting and intense thunderstorms that are known for causing extreme winds on the leading edge of them. Derechos must be consistently, so this is non-stop, producing those 58 plus mile per hour wind gusts, so severe wind gusts, over 240 or more miles to be considered as one of those. They can also be 400 or more miles, and that goes off with the gusts as well. There are a couple different definitions, but the 240 or more miles is the exact definition for us there. Now, what causes derechos? Extreme downdrafts and downbursts cause derechos, so this is going to be going straight out in one direction. The difference here is the fact that the derecho winds tend to move in a line, again, that one direction, so they might be pushing west to east, resulting in destructive winds over the course of hours at a time. These storms can impact whole states. Yes, they will impact towns within the states, but this isn't just going to be, a downburst falling directly over a city in Kansas. No, this is going to start in Kansas, make its way eastward into places like Missouri, and potentially up into Illinois from there as it continues progressing. That would be an example. What causes derechos? Derechos typically get going when wind speeds in the atmosphere are very strong but also consistent. In other words, winds in upper levels are moving quickly in a single direction. During a derecho, derechos also need to be at least 60 miles in terms of width, since smaller storms wouldn't typically meet the guidelines. So during a derecho, shelf clouds will typically develop and be a big signal to everyday people that a dangerous convective storm is moving in. Lightning will also be nonstop during these storms, and if it happens at night, you'll notice the flashing going off in the distance. Again, that's an example of a shelf cloud. Basically, exactly where you see that shelf-looking cloud, that's where that heavy surge of rain and wind is going to start pushing on into your area. And when you have rain and wind, wind of 100 miles an hour and rain at the same time, it can cause a big problem. So you start with a straight updraft. This is from the weather.gov. Thank you to them. You can see there is a gust front that starts getting going. Notice it starts maybe as a smaller storm, and then it forms more of a line as it starts moving out. When you get the anvil in the supercell thunderstorm, and actually this wouldn't be a supercell, this would be more of just a classic cumulonimbus, but really producing those strong winds. You can see them coming out. You can see the the updraft spreading out through the cloud, the gust front really starting to curve into that backward C shape, that bow echo, and that just spreads out over time. Eventually the line might weaken, but you could still see damaging winds out ahead of it just because of how much momentum and steam these storms can build. Now, a sudden derecho occurred August 10th, 2020. And these derechos can happen without advanced warning sometimes. You can see we had a level 2 severe weather risk out of 5 from eastern Kansas going to Illinois, and then look how that transformed by the end of the day. A extreme derecho made its way through portions of Cedar Rapids with more than 100-mile-an-hour winds moving through. That made its way all the way on over eastward towards the Chicagoland area. So you can definitely see how really the severe weather risk shifted from a level 1 across that zone to a level 4 in the matter of a day. But derechos typically have some warning ahead of time, so let's talk about how to prepare and stay safe. This is when you can remove those outdoor furniture pieces or secure it. If you live in an area even that gets just regular downbursts and thunderstorms, just make sure that you have your outdoor furniture, that kind of thing, tied down. Talk with family about your plan, and again, plan your day or night accordingly. If you know you're going to be out driving when a derecho moves in, you might want to make sure that you're home early or you stay at work. When a storm hits and has strong to extreme winds, head away from the windows wherever you are to an interior area. And if you're outside, make sure you try to duck and cover. If you're in a car, you might be better getting out if you think there's a risk of it blowing over. If not, duck down inside the car, get down below, the windows down in there. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Next up, I'll be covering your hail and tornadoes in the next video.